You felt a pop?
Yeah, like on the outside. I don't know.
Well, you know, it's funny you say that, Rene. Most people think that something's popping and that they're tearing their ACL or meniscus, but it's not actually that. In jiu-jitsu, you know, like you and I have joked about this, like the common thing everyone says is, I felt a pop, I heard a pop, right?
Right.
How do you know if it matters?
Right.
The pop matters if you instantly have sharp stabbing pain and you can't even like weight bear or walk anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I'm okay,
Yeah. So like you've demonstrated that you can move. Like you still need to take it a little bit seriously sometimes, especially when you have pain, even if you can move.
So you're saying that if a pop happens, it doesn't mean like something bad, or like how does that fit together?
Well, so the pop doesn't have to mean something's bad. When a joint goes through a range of motion and it starts to like open up, you get through different phases of like the joint almost like adjusting itself. So there's different grades of mobilization that we learned, starting from grade 1 all the way through grade 5. When you get to the final level of mobilization, that's when you get like a pop and like gas gets released from the joint.
Right.
If you go past that point, that's when you start tearing the ligaments and the connective tissue that is like holding the joint together. So that way your bones don't just like flop around each other. So the pop is no different than when someone gets adjusted sometimes. And that like you've just taken it to the end and then gas is released. But if you just keep going, you take it past the final level of mobilization and then you tear everything that's holding the joint together because now the joint is like fully open and then like a chicken leg just snapped.
Yeah. So not to make it more complicated, but could a pop also have something to do with like a muscle or something like that?
Some people will describe like an Achilles tear sometimes, like a pop or a snap.
Or like, for example, like if I'm rolling and I'm like in a leg configuration, because that's usually what we associate pops with. Like there's a lot of different positions that we can associate pops with, but most of the time it's like from like leg entanglements. So because there's like a lot of pressure on your knee, like I'm putting all of my weight, all of your knee is bearing my weight in that situation. So like even maybe if I'm not even having the submission lock, but we just rotate in a weird way, pop.
Yeah,
right? So could that be maybe not even my knee, but my hamstring or something like that?
Most likely if you hear a pop, it's not going to be the muscle, it's going to be the joint.
Yeah.
But you could feel a pop, and certainly sometimes you could get like where like the muscle is connecting into the part to the joint, to the bone. You can get little tears where like it actually pulls a little fragment of the bone.
For sure.
And that would certainly feel like a pop.
Well, why I'm asking the muscle question is because like if somebody feels a pop and they don't feel great after, like they don't feel like not that they can't walk, but they feel some sort of soreness immediately and some instability, should they do, and in jiu-jitsu, this is what we say, ice it, like immediately, right? Like, or should they let that inflammation happen? Should they do heat? Should they, what do you think a general kind of answer would be?
Well, when there's an acute trauma, like one of the best things someone can do is get ahead of like the unnecessary large amount of inflammation that'll come. So like icing in the beginning is not a terrible idea in those first like 24 hours or so. You do need some inflammation in order to be able to heal. So sometimes people get like carried away and they're like overly icing.
For sure.
But in the case of you had like leg entanglement and you felt something pop, maybe a muscle or the joint in the knee, icing like proactively for like the first day or so, and then seeing like
only
what
like
comes.
20 minutes on, right?
Yeah, it depends what kind of ice you're doing. But like if you're in an ice bath, you want to go to the point of like being numb, but then you got to get out. If you put ice on yourself for too long, you're going to get like frostbite. If you're in the ice bath too long, you become hypothermic.
Right.
So like you have to be careful with ice.
For sure.
But yeah, like maybe 15 minutes or something, but definitely go based on how you feel.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I think like, at least in the jiu-jitsu community, like that's one way of assessing like how to break somebody like in a leg lock or in an arm bar or in a shoulder lock or anything like that, is it doesn't just go snap, it goes pop then snap. So that's why people associate it with like,
that's interesting.
So like for example, if I grab a hold of your foot right now and I go crack, like before that crack happens, a bunch of little pops are gonna happen and then a snap.
Yeah,
right?
that's actually
so that's why
interesting.
like they associate it with like bad, even if it's like a small little movement, like people get like really worried about it. I'll be like, why'd you take the whole week off? And they're like, dude, I popped my knee last week. And I'm like, wake up, like
if it pops,
go to mobility doc,
yes, if it pops, stop,
Yeah.
and then assess the situation. If you're getting a lot of pops, the issue becomes that there's probably too much tightness and stiffness. And you certainly don't want to run into a situation where the pops start creating inflammation. If you hear a pop though, you don't have to like rush to any conclusions that you've like torn your ACL, torn your meniscus.
Right.
The important thing to do is pay attention to it for the next couple of days, and if it gets if it starts to get dramatically better after like 2 to 3 days, chances of you tearing something significant, very little.
But I think it's important for people to like be aware of like, it's not like, and not saying that like, oh, it's just a little pop, like keep going, but just be aware of like.
If it pops, stop. Like definitely if it pops, tap for the moment. Yeah. It might not mean that you've hurt yourself yet, but it is an indication. If someone's grabbing your heel and your knee pops, you might be just that step before getting hurt.
Right.
So like you need to take the pop seriously, but you may be lucky that you didn't get to that next part, which is what you were saying. Like it's a pop and then the tear.
Yeah, or snap.
Or the snap.
Or break.
Or crackle.
Yeah.
If it pops, stop.
Yeah.
And then assess the situation. Potentially just call it in that moment if you're really unsure. Ice. Try to like stretch out, roll out a bit around the area, and then like evaluate like the next day. If it seems like it's getting much worse and you're getting concerned, definitely work with someone like us, or at least to ask the question. But if it's going away quickly and you're like, well, yesterday I could barely walk when it happened, but now I'm just like able to move around fine, chances of it being serious are pretty low.
Yeah. Okay.
If it pops,
stop.
There you go.